All right, thank you, Eric. Thank you everyone for joining us again. Welcome to those of you who are new. It's really wonderful to have you in the space as well. And so we're gonna get started pretty quickly because I want to reserve some time at the end for questions. So hopefully we can have about 30 minutes of questions and so forth as well. And I won't be here the next 2 Mondays. So if you're missing your Monday night at the bar, you can head. No, don't please still come. Other people will be hosting. Listen, I always have all kinds of plans. So if one thing falls through, everyone's like, oh my God, your night is ruined. This thing has been canceled. I'm like, baby, I have 2 or 3 backups. Listen, I have people on waiting lists waiting for me to turn up. So listen, you but please come. It's a really wonderful experience if you haven't been in the space with practice leaders as well. Um, Yeah, and I know this is like going in and out of focus, but and I'll see some of you later this week up in Massachusetts as well for our Berry Center retreat too. So lots is going on, and thank you also for those who have been contributing to our fundraising as well. It's been very successful. Thank you so much. And of course, we have so many things that we want to roll out and offer um, throughout this year. Okay. So just a reminder to go ahead and get your prayer requests. If you want to offer a prayer request as well, we're going to stop in and offer those as well. Okay. So I just want to, we've been exploring, just kind of like pointing out instructions, getting to the nature, of the mind, getting to the essence of all phenomenal reality, um, getting into that attunement, because it's really pointing out instructions or really just attunement to the nature of our minds, right? It's an attunement that should be done, by someone who themselves is attuned to that state, that experience as well. And that experience of the nature of our minds, the true nature of our minds, that emptiness, the space, the fluidity, this energy, right, is the birthplace of all phenomena, including the Buddhas, including our bodies, including the world, everything arises from this experience, the state, actually. I would say this is more than just an experience, it is a state of being that we're trying to remember. And I think Buddhism is really, a path of remembering, of returning back to not creating. I don't think we're creating anything, but I think we're going through this deduction, like we're trying to cut through all the complexity to touch back into the states, right? And the state is free from suffering. And then the very I would say the experience of the state is one of bliss, right? Bliss is the experience of being free from suffering, right? Not just happy, not just joy, but bliss, right? That's what we're trying to get back to, is this experience of bliss. Now, bliss is something that we can't experience in the body, because bliss cannot exist in the density of this realm of, we traditionally say, samsara. I refer to it in spiritual abolition as the carceral states, the mental, psychic, experience of being policed and surveilled and kind of like trapped and bound within this deep discomfort, that deep discomfort being really just trauma, you know? So bliss can't really arise in the state because one, bliss, this density, this experience cannot hold bliss, right? Secondly, um, we in our bodies, we can't possibly hold the experience of bliss. Bliss is beyond anything that we could possibly get to. And this is why experiences like joy, I would even say ecstasy, I mean, these are just words, right? I mean, what do they really mean, right? But like I think joy points us in the direction of bliss, right? And if we could keep going into joy, deeper and deeper into joy, we would eventually land back in bliss, right? But bliss, again, is the experience of the true nature of our minds. That experience is beyond suffering, right? So bliss doesn't need an opposite to define itself, like happiness. We only know happiness because we know sorrow, right? Or unhappiness. We know joy because we know the opposite of joy, which is, I would say, maybe despair, right? But bliss has no opposites, right? Because it never arose as a binary experience. It just is. And that's what we're trying to get back to, right? Is that basic fundamental state that transcends all the binaries of suffering and not suffering. That is the true nature of the Buddhas, right, as well. Buddhas, I think, are conscious experiences that know bliss, that are consciously arising in bliss, right? And so we are essentially practicing a lot of skillfulness to hold these experiences of the deity in our practice, right? Yeah. And I think, for instance, orgasming is one of those doorways into like joy, or ecstasy, but in that kind of like sexual tantric kind of perspective, bliss is, this experience of transcending the binary, even just for a moment, right? And then returning back to the binary, returning back to the body, right? And this is why the biochemical, spiritual workings of like this orgasmic state is something that is being worked with in tantric sex, right? And tantric sex calls for deep intentionality, right? So tantric sex isn't a hookup, on Saturday night, right? It is this intentional kind of union that we enter into with someone who themselves are actually mirroring that same intentionality of actually using pleasure to get free. So pleasure as the path of liberation, because anything can be a path of liberation. Liberation through pleasure, liberation through sight, liberation through sound, liberation through food, whatever it may be. The point is, do we or can we connect to the essence of whatever is arising, right? And traditional Orthodox Tantric sex is something that very advanced practitioners do. And I think the gist of tantric sex is actually remaining very present and aware and be able to hold space for intense pleasure. And most of us just kind of get wrapped up in it. Um, we get overwhelmed, but like to actually hold pleasure and to be completely embodied in that pleasure, to be completely online during the whole experience, and to use that energy to actually channel into the essence, right? That's what you're trying to do. Um, so in any case, we're not doing that tonight. No, that's a whole other thing. That's booming after dark. That's um, yeah, that's a whole nother thing. That takes a lot of practice and work. But there are many other practices that get us there. So you don't have to be by any means good at everything, but you have to be dedicated to one practice to get free. That's what's called sadhana. Sadhana is a devotion to one practice. It may even be watching your breath. It may even be chanting. It may even be deity practice and so forth, right? Um, but it's that simple, pure dedication that begins to awaken the state, the essence of everything, right? So anyway, just a little bit of background on that. So let's go ahead and move into our practice as well. Finishing up those prayer requests as well. And today really beginning with our intention, right? And our intention is to practice to get free from suffering and to help others get free from suffering. And we do this kind of liberation work through the strengthening or the cultivation of deep attention or awareness, so that we begin to understand what is conducive to getting free and what is not conducive to getting free. So we begin to invest in what is liberatory and to begin to divest from what is not liberatory. So to begin to invest in spaciousness and openness, fluidity, and deep care and clarity, beginning to divest from rigidity, beginning to divest from intense aversion and overwhelming desire or craving. So in other words, I would say we're practicing to awaken our agency to choose freedom. And in choosing freedom for ourselves, we become an agent of liberation for other beings. When we do our work to get free, we become less work for others. So as we mentioned maybe a couple of sessions ago, right? May I become the medicine, right? May I become the medicine, not the problem, or something like that. I forget what we said. May I become the medicine. And this is how you become the medicine, by getting clear upfront about why you're doing this. Get clear. Just a few more moments here, just getting clear. And when you start coming into this intention more deeply, allowing that awakening intention to like really like to blossom, to bloom in your experience. Like feel, you can feel this experience of space opening, right? Things like feel as if, like it feels like you're beginning to lift, like out of this density. Because getting clear about your intentions around liberation begins to lift us out of the density of ambiguity, right? Of confusion, right? About what we're doing and why we're here. And when you are rooted in this intention, and as it begins to open and bloom in your experience, that's when really the nature of mind, the nature or the essence of all phenomena starts to come much more into focus. And it is an extremely subtle experience. So don't expect a bell to go off, right? Or a signal. Like you just, it's this gradual expansion into holding everything without distraction. And then a very gentle, faint, mm, kind of lifting, I would say, a gentle, faint, a gentle, faint, but very slight dissolving of the sharpness or the density of phenomena. So things become, they feel lighter, they feel clearer, they don't feel as so heavy. And it feels as if you enter into a kind of deep rest. But it's not about being, it's not about sleeping or being fatigued. It's just a way that you let go. Something in your mind and your experience begins to let go of clinging and fixation, and everything gets dropped. And then when things get dropped, then it feels as if a softness emerges. Things get softer. Things aren't as edgy anymore. Things aren't so immediate or urgent. Things become less urgent. For some of you, you're getting more and more into that, getting closer and closer into this experience. And for some of us, we're still at the very early stages of this, and that's fine. Because if you're just joining, or just beginning a practice, this is kind of like high level Mahamudra that we're doing, right? And it's okay, because this is how I started, being completely confused about what was happening in the teachings. but it's still important. Listening to a teacher talk about the essence like this and pointing out the essence helps quite a bit, even if you don't feel as if anything is happening. So another thing that we're doing is relaxing, but also remaining attentive. You're relaxing while holding everything, even fatigue. So you want to relax this part of your mind that's creating and clinging and anxious, to begin to open and to hold all these experiences, including exhaustion. So make it easy. I know some of you feel as though this is the furthest thing from easy, but make it easy. Just make it, just let go. Let it go. And just let everything be. Let everything arise. All the fear, the anxiety, even the joy and the gratitude, just let it be there. Stop, you have to stop fighting everything and just let everything have its space, because it's not what you're thinking, right? It's not the material in your mind, it's not the thoughts, it's not the emotions, right? It is our relationship to this material. Are you manipulating everything, or are you just letting everything just be there? And can you let go of the judgment that many of us struggle with as we are trying to just let even the ugly shit be there? Because baby, it's okay if you're pissed off. I'm pissed off. Join the club. It's okay. You're jealous about something. Okay. You're not fucking perfect. I'm not either. No one is. The Buddha wasn't perfect. And if there's grief, right, just let the grief rise. Let the anger rise. Let the frustration rise. Let the fear, right? Even if it's terror, let the terror be there. I mean, so many of us are worried about this year, about the future of this year. What we're doing now is not worrying. That's not the point of this practice in this moment. Because if we can just let go of this fixation to worry, then we can find the clarity and the solutions and the work that we're being called to that directly tend to the future that may be coming. I'm not worried about the future because I am doing the work in this moment. And whatever happens, happens. I don't care what happens because I am doing what I need to do right now. If you can trust your practice like that, then you'll see something really profound, amazing. And you can't get free in the future. You can't get free in worrying and anxiety. There's no freedom there unless you come back to this moment and hold all of that. All the fear, all the sorrow, all the anger, just hold it, let it be there. And the more we relax into that holding, the more we expand. And the more we expand, the more we begin to touch into the spaciousness which is holding everything. And the space is taking care of all of us. The space as the expression of the mother. And in this place, wherever we are, let's start calling into this essence, this emptiness and space and energy. Let's start calling into it. Let's start shaping this essence around our intentions. And we first begin this shaping through a prayer, through prayer, the first mantra of our practice. Om Menla Sangye Kino Soha Medicine Buddha. Please think of me, look upon me, remember me. As always, we begin with Om, right? The sound, the frequency of emptiness, of creation, of the beginning. In the beginning, there was this frequency, Om. We would chant this and then recite the mantra 3 times and then ending with Om to remember, right? That Om is both the beginning and the end. This is where we start, and this is where we're heading back into the beginning, the essence, the birth of all phenomena. We'll begin. Om. Om la sange ki no so Om la sange ki no so Om la sange ki no so Om. We pray into this emptiness, this essence, to begin to shape itself, to form itself into the expression of Medicine Buddha. And allowing Medicine Buddha in your mind to take form, because Medicine Buddha is your mind. All the Buddhas are just expressions of our minds. So as we've called Medicine Buddha, let Medicine Buddha simply take form. All that fear, the anxiety, the sorrow, the grief, let that take form as this awakened Buddha, as Medicine Buddha. Whatever you're struggling with in this moment, let it begin to shape itself, to reform itself as an expression of Medicine Buddha. Beginning to experience this awakening of Medicine Buddha in your mind as if you're watching the sunrise, particularly the sun rising after a night of storms and raining. When all of that turbulence begins to come to rest and the sun begins to slowly begins to rise, beginning to spill this brilliant light across the world, across the land. See that light awakening in your own mind as it begins to cast away shadows, and those shadows being fear and doubt and worry and loneliness and regret. Let the sun of Medicine Buddha awaken in your own mind and in your body. And just take a few moments just to sit in the brilliance of this light. And slowly we just begin to turn our minds to Medicine Buddha's main mantra, Teya Ta Om Bacon Se, Maha Bacon Se, Rasa Sumogate Soha. And we're gonna start it just like kind of soft, a little slow. Just slowly building energy. As this brilliance of Medicine Buddha fills our complete experience. 오 제야자움 백은세 백은세 마백은세 라즈 수모가테소하 제야자움 백은세 백은세 마백은세 라즈 수모가테소하 제야다움 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 백은세 백은세 마백은세 라즈 수모가테소하 So calling the attention of all the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, the Yidams, the Dharma protectors, all beings of light, the earth, the land, all the elements and all the spirits and guides and guardians of the elemental world, all angels, all of our benevolent ancestors, all beings who want us to be free. We call to you and we offer these prayers to you on behalf of this community, this collective that is gathered to remember our fundamental natures in order to get free. We begin by offering prayers for my sweet little dog as she transitions to the bardo, offering prayers of comfort for all those to grieve, offering prayers for Megan D, who was killed by her husband. May she understand that she is dead and find the support she needs to traverse the bardos. Offering prayers that Bianca may find for friendship and love that she longs for, and that she may learn to trust and go deeper with others. Offering prayers for my nephew so that he has what he needs to be stable and happy after his recent divorce. Offering prayers that all benefits of doing this practice go to the happiness of all living things. Prayers of clarity for my daughter Skylar's job search and connection to her heart with compassion. Prayers for Saint Frida. Offering prayers of gratitude for my guides and their help with everything, especially the Reiki. May I continue to be as powerful as possible in the healing I'm sending with their help and support of the universe. Offering prayers to Lama Rod for changing my life for the better and for creating this radical space for us all to be held in, and these revolutionary practices guiding us towards enlightenment. Offering prayers for my own physical healing of bilateral arm tendon tears and grief journey in the death of my child. May I release judgment of self and others with love and compassion. Peace, peace, peace to all here. Offering prayers for my work, prayers for clarity and wisdom in our political choices, prayers for the health of AW on all levels. Offering prayers for all in need of protection these days. Prayers to continue to integrate my pain, rage, confusion, and dependency. Prayers for all I chant for to manifest. Prayers to get fully free. Offering prayers to my dad to be released from the fear and the lack mentality, released from whatever weight and energies keep him feeling powerless in cycles of rumination and shame. Pray for guides and ancestors to lighten him and lead him towards the empowerment, joy, connection, and safety that is his birthright. Offering prayers for my continued healing from nerve pain. Offering prayers for Elle, who turned her back towards my heart again. Offering prayers for my primary and eyes continued healing from childhood hurts. Offering prayers to the people, land, and animals of Palestine, to those still living through the pain and grief, and those who have transitioned. Prayers to the souls inflicting the violence, those who are estranged from their humanity and stuck in distortion. Offering prayers for the Williamson family as their matriarch is entering the bardo at age 98. Offering prayers for the M family as they have lost 2 cars to accidents and only suffered minor injuries. Offering prayers for our nation as we deal with uncertainty and national trauma. Offering prayers for all who are suffering in war zones around the world, and prayers for Ezra and Mos and Maz to find housing. Offering prayers for my beloved wife and I as we continue to work through the impacts of trauma. Prayers for my beloved brother and his wife as she fights terminal cancer. Prayers for our beloved cat Soup as he continues to heal from surgery. Prayers for my beloved family as we navigate anxiety and depression. Offering prayers for the woman I met on a ferry in Bermuda who shared with me her tremendous grief over the violent deaths of two young men who were shot this past week. Prayers to the families of those young men and the numerous deaths as a result of gun violence around the globe. May there be peace and healing. Offering prayers for my neighbor Sharon, who was assaulted, and may she and her family have peace as they move through this incredibly difficult time. Prayers for all that they may feel my love and may things unfold as they need to. Offering prayers for Danielle and Reed, who is navigating his new life as a quadriplegic. Offering prayers for my family, may they feel loved and safe. Prayers for me as I go through cancer treatment, may I tend to my brokenheartedness and longing with grace. Prayers for Em and Ara, may they experience healing and freedom. Prayers for the people of Palestine and the hearts of those who would harm them. May an unanticipated peace come over all of them. Offering prayers for healing, authentic love for myself here and now, and for all beings without exception. Offering prayers of gratitude for being able to worry less and grow more confidence in the benevolence of phenomenal reality. Offering prayers for my daughter to increase her nutritional intake so she stays out of the hospital. Offering prayers of gratitude for the business leads that come over the weekend. Offering prayers that everyone experience a whisper of their divinity and the stainlessness of their whole being and love themselves and others as they truly are now. Offering prayers of access and abundance so I may funnel it back into this amazing community of beloveds. Offering prayers of protection for all the meek, the vulnerable, and the young. May young people keep their true hearts and not succumb to despair and cynicism. Prayers for that divorce meditation be as mediation. Prayers that divorce mediation be as painless as possible, and that all suffering through this experience goes to liberation of all beings. Prayers for Father Louise. Prayers for protection for this community. Prayers for my blood clot to dissolve without drama. Offering prayers for protection for my family and my daughter, praying that we may find a path to safe land at just the right time, in just the right way, and supported by hands that will protect us and love us swiftly. Offering prayers for my continued safety and protection. May I continue to be abundant and easeful. May I have financial abundance and ease, and may I be free. Offering prayers that I prove to be a worthy steward of the Council of Three Fires land. May it know my loving intention. Prayers for Carla, and may her path be clear and blessed, and may she know abundance and allow herself to pursue what fires her up and gets her free. Offering prayers that the global totalitarian movement is brought to a decisive end. May we all appreciate our need to get free and decide that work is well worth it. Offering prayers for the people migrating to the United States. May they feel loved. May those escaping violence and persecution find sanctuary. Offering prayers that my son is offered the job he interviewed for last week. May that help him move even more freely into who he is and what one wants to be. Prayers for my daughter and son-in-law as they parent their two children on the autism spectrum. May they all have good and peaceful time on vacation at the beach this week. And prayers for Willie Mae and her transition to the martyrdom. Offering prayers for faith and ease during my job search, that I may heal intergenerational trauma around poverty. May I experience rest and healing, body, mind, and spirit, that what I am able to contribute in all ways at this time is enough. Offering prayers for protecting and providing mental clarity and fortitude for my son Mateo and me, Harshola, as we navigate difficult life challenges, escaping domestic violence and child abuse. Please send us loving kindness and prayers for peace, happiness, and safety. I pray we all are well protected and feel the support from within and by our ancestors. Offering prayers for our family of origin to be free from delusions and for them to find a connection to their real soul existence and divine purpose, sending them all loving kindness. Offering prayers for our elected officials to be free from delusions and for them to find a connection to their real soul existence and divine purpose, sending them all loving kindness. Offering prayers for Tiffany and her children this week, prayers for myself and spouse as we continue to separate our household and business. May violence against women in films come to an end. May the perpetrators of violence in all forms, intimate and anonymous, spontaneous and premeditated, be held meaningfully accountable. May survivors be protected at all costs. Offering prayers for my integration after medicine ceremony, for our world and all those who suffer, for protection, for love, for joy, for ecstasy, for bliss, for freedom for us all. Offering prayers for this country to be protected from fascist takeover. Prayers that the people will see through the delusion and access their true inner power, collective care, and liberation to co-create our freedom. And we continue to pray, as always, for the abolition of all systems of violence and harm, that we all get free as quickly as possible, that we all know and embody love, and that we enter into a future that is free from hate and free from the ways in which we over prioritize materialism over relationships and people and the care of people. And I continue to offer a special prayer too for the Kashi Atlanta community, for our healing, and for our restoration, and to remember our lineage and deep practice, and continue to pray for the complete freedom of all beings as quickly as possible. May it happen as quickly as possible. Ashe. And we offer these prayers to all of our benefactors, all of our sources of refuge whom we've invited, and we pray that you bring about the change and the transformation and the liberation that we so desperately need. And as we turn back into our practice, continue to allow the brilliance of Medicine Buddha in whatever form Medicine Buddha has awakened for you to radiate. And imagine that this radiance is beginning to radiate all over this world, all over all the worlds. Imagining that this radiance begins to free all beings from suffering. Begenze ma begenze lasus sumungati soha te anda begenze begenze ma begenze lasus sumungati soha te anda begenze begenze ma begenze lasus sumungati soha te anda begenze begenze ma begenze lasus sumungati soha te anda begenze begenze ma begenze lasus sumungati soha te anda begenze begenze ma begenze lasus sumungati soha te anda begenze begenze ma begenze lasus sumungati soha te anda begenze begenze ma begenze lasus sumungati soha te anda begenze begenze ma begenze lasus sumungati Tesoa de anda begenze begenze ma begenze raza sumunga tesoa. We offer just one last prayer to the world, to all beings. And again, offering this deep prayer that we all get free from all forms of suffering as quickly as possible. And may we remember the essence, the very nature of what we are. Letting Medicine Buddha in your mind just completely dissolve into the light that they're radiating. And this light begins to just kind of mix in or settle within the energy of your own mind. And we pray to Medicine Buddha for protection, for healing, for guidance, that the blessing of Medicine Buddha will remain with you, and the protection of Medicine Buddha will remain with you until we meet again and even beyond. When you're ready, bringing your awareness or attention to the seat, noticing the weight of your body and the seat rising to hold you. And slowly beginning to offer some movement back into your body. Maybe a few deep cleansing breaths as well. Let me turn our attention to Shantideva's prayer, which you'll find in the chat box, which we'll recite 3 times. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine. May I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, I always, I also, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. And finally, may I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. All right, everyone, thank you for your practice. Um, and then we'll just take this next 10 minutes just for questions. If you have questions, you can put them into the chat. And you can ask them, unmute and ask them as well.
Special shout out to folks who may never have asked a question in this space before. Really opening up space if there's any curiosity. Otherwise, rock and roll, David.
Yeah, thanks, Lama Rod. Just wanted to ask your thoughts. So, doing a lot of meditation, and my practice is opening up, and lots of synchronicities are happening. But what I found the last couple of days, I'll imagine seeing someone. I'm a therapist as well, and so happens to be patients and people that I've sat in medicine circles with, and I'll imagine seeing them, and then a half hour later, or within 24 hours, I'll see them.
Mhm.
Um, and because I'm a therapist, I mean, I understand it could be a bit, paranoid process and all that jazz, but and I'm not sure exactly what it means, nor do I need to put a meaning onto it. I'm just curious your thoughts, beyond just the woo-woo nature of it, in terms of my practice. If there's anything that I need to drop into, or I mean, obviously unattached to the the experience itself, but I'm just curious. Any guidance would be helpful.
So you see people, you get a like a vision of someone before you see them.
Yeah, yeah. Or I'll see someone, like I was in Soho yesterday and I saw this person. I said, that reminds me of a patient of mine. I think I'm gonna see him. And then a half hour later, this guy lives in Brooklyn. A half hour later, he walks up to me. And
Mm-hmm.
then so
Yeah. I mean, it's just premonitions. Like it's just like like the way in which the mind reveals the nonlinear nature of everything, and you just begin to experience that. After a lot, of meditation practice. I mean, I think those capacities are already very strong with you. Yeah, I think that um, for many of us, um, we kind of like were born with these innate capacities, and then they were, kind of like conditioned out of us, as imaginary experiences that we have to get rid of. But it seems like they're just reawakening, you know.
So because I work with this person and other people I've seen in medicine circles, I feel like since this is a medicine Buddha, um, they're connected with me in some way, and my karmic constellation is to offer them something. So, uh, yeah, I'm just trying to, again, within my practice, try to understand the liberation project in regards to what more I'm supposed to do, not do,
Yeah.
offer, pray on.
Well, nothing right now. Just like let it be. You know, let it reveal meaning to you instead of you seeking it out.
Okay.
And make it just, and also make it very ordinary. You know, don't make it, try not to, this is the thing, when you make things super extraordinary like this, then they lose meaning. You know, and then you get distracted by its extraordinariness. Let it be subtle, let it be normal, normalize it. Of course, I'm going to see this person. You know, of course, there you are. I was just thinking about you. I just saw you, of course. You know, and that kind of normalizing actually gets us to the wisdom of this a lot quicker, right? And it also helps you to feel like it helps all of us when we do this kind of process. It helps to take away this sense of us being super special, right? Because it only takes like one like super special thought for us to be starting a cult. You know, listen. I personally have seen people start cults with much less intuition than what you have. So anyway, I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, David. I'm just going to read one from the chat here as well. This person would love some advice about anxiety. They have body-based tools, but sometimes it is still overwhelming. Do you have any magic spells?
Well, Medicine Buddha mantra is a nice spell that you can work with. Um, yeah, I mean, like this is like very basic, kind of technology, right? In this tradition, but again, it's just like, is the anxiety the problem, or is it our relationship to the anxiety that's the problem? You know, like, can we just allow that anxiety and the tools that we have to be enough to support us in just holding space for what arises in that moment, right? Um, Sometimes, strictly speaking, about this kind of work, it's like it's our reactivity that makes things overwhelming, not the experience itself. Often, you know, we can experience a lot of fear, but if you're reacting to that fear, then it turns into terror, and it's felt physically, is embodied, and what we're trying to do is just hold everything and say, okay, there you are. There's the heart. There's the anxiety. There's the fear. Okay, right. I'm just gonna show up and be present and witness, and that witnessing is the way that we take care of what arises for us. Okay, we can continue.
Martha, I believe you were next.
Cool. Hi, Lama Rod.
Hey.
I have a question about Tonglen.
Uh-huh.
Been doing that more recently. And I've been reading about it, and all the encouragement is to really to take on all the suffering, right? To be able to transmute that. And I still often get to a point where there's a kind of a revulsion in my body, like a no, like I can't. And I know it's important to kind of get to that place, or at least in my understanding, it's important to get to the place where you're not afraid of that, right? So I'm wondering if you have advice about how to work that point.
Yeah. Um, Again, there's always going to be fear of taking on the suffering. So we're not trying to get to a place of the absence of fear. We're trying to get to a place where we're even holding space for the fear itself. And if we hold space for fear, then we have this this space to make different choices. You know, so the fear is always going to be there, but again, the fear isn't the problem. It's our relationships with the fear, how we react to the fear. Even response to the fear. Okay. Um, so when you're doing Tonglen, like yeah, you start with Tonglen for the self, right? And as you're doing the practice for yourself, then you can think, oh, my suffering is just a reflection of the suffering of everyone and everything, right? And use that, come into it through that angle. Like my suffering is just an extension of the suffering of all beings. And as I take on my suffering, I'm also at the same time taking on the suffering of all beings. But I'm rooted in my experience of suffering. Right? So you don't want to bypass yourself to take on other people's suffering, but you're going through your suffering to experience empathy for every being suffering. And that's what we're trying to do, is awaken empathy. That my suffering is also the suffering of others. And may we all be free through this practice. All right?
Thank you, Martha. Ava?
Hi, Lama Rod, and
Hey.
everyone. Thank you for offering and holding space. Um, yeah, I've been tuning into the practice for a while, but because of my time zone, it's usually through the archive. So it's great to be with you all tonight. And actually following on from the last point about empathy, I've noticed that I'm starting to really be able to like embody and experience what it is to want the alleviation of suffering for everybody else. I think I was numb for quite a long time. So it's really great to have this practice to channel that feeling into. But I've noticed that I'm having a different experience when I chant than when I silently meditate. I think it's because of activating the voice and the breath. And it makes it harder to kind of, I guess, tune into non-duality. And I want to like hold the meaning of the words that we're chanting. I want to hold them, but I also want to be able to tune more into vibration and transcend the concept. So I wanted you to speak to how we can like hold the people that we're praying for in our hearts and stay connected to that suffering that we're aiming to alleviate without being distracted by images and narratives about those people, especially when, we're so consumed at this point by images, especially of Palestine. So how we stay connected, but also are able to transcend some of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. And that's something that I used to struggle with directly. How much do I hold? How much do I focus? If I'm not focusing, like, does the practice work? Like, and then there's trying to hold the meaning of these like mantras in other languages, and most of these mantras actually don't have a direct meaning either. So it's like all of this is happening, but the actual thing that I advise is just to let go of trying to do anything. Right? At the beginning of your practice, you set the intention, right? And then just offer that intention into emptiness, right? Because that's where the intention came from to begin with, right? And then having awakened that attention, that the intention is shaping the practice itself. So, like, you may be thinking about rainbows and popcorn and the Golden Girls, which I often do in my practice, which is fine. You You can come in and out of that, right? But you know that you set the container for your practice through intention, right? So I know, and I'm very confident that I'm not chanting to create harm or practicing to create harm. I'm practicing to benefit, even if I'm unfocused. That's still where all of my effort is going, right? So letting go of the meanings of the prayers, letting go of holding certain, you know, like images, right? And just actually rest within this intention or the feeling too of practicing and knowing that this practice is will be benefiting and helping others, right? And that's how you get back into the non-duality of it. Like that's you let go of holding on to everything and just actually return back to resting within the non-duality, trusting that there's a higher consciousness actually very active and working and bringing about um, the change that you want to see. And I don't have to be 100% conscious of that. Right?
Thank you so much for your question, Ava. Lama Rod, I think we have two hands raised. Do we have
Yeah,
space?
yeah, absolutely. You know, I don't want to keep everyone so long, but like we'll get those. Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, Paul, what's up?
Hello. I guess first off, thank you so much, Eric and Lama Rod, for all of the work that you do, for your labor, for your service. Um, I guess I've been trying to kind of find words for this for a while, but I think it's kind of cleared up a little bit in the last week or so. And I'm a little confused, kind of like troubled, but I guess what I'm finding in my experience is like the more Yidam practice that I do with y'all, the more Dzogchen I'm doing by myself, the more whatever, I'm feeling less inclined and less open to other people's suffering. And I know I need to resource myself and care for myself. And I'm finding these practices really helpful for developing some consistency around eating more and caring for myself more. But in the bigger picture, I feel like I'm closing off and like I want to hide from other people's experience and their suffering, which can be really troublesome if you have to counsel children or whatever else it might be. But do you have any advice?
That's a really good question as well, because what you're experiencing are signs that you actually need to focus more on yourself. Um, so we talk about, self-care is the buzzword, but really, in my work, it's like we don't get free depleted, right? And so what a lot of people experience, I did at the beginning of my practice, was like this realization. Well, I didn't really realize it, but all the signs of my practice were actually about shutting down
Yes.
because I was extremely depleted. I started this path like beat, worn down. Like it was, I just felt like I started from like the very bottom, and it's taken years and years and years to open. Well, to do the healing work, to do the replenishing work, right? And what you get now is someone who is just sharing with you what I am just spilling over. Like it's like a watershed experience. It's like you get so filled up that like you just begin to naturally offer the access. Right? That's where we need to get to in our practice. And you need to get filled up so you can start spilling over. So it's not that you don't give a shit. It's that you're trying to figure out where you need to be resourced. And you're gonna have to go through, all of you, many of us, right, are gonna have to experience what it's like to go through the very, very long journey of being filled. Right? Just being filled up, just taking. Right? And I hope that this is what you're doing when you're practicing with me. I hope that you're just opening as much as possible, because my experience is just feeling like a waterfall. I'm just like spilling, like flooding. this energy, and I'm not being depleted.
Yeah.
I'm not depleting myself to resource you, right? I'm just offering what I don't need to hold for myself.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is really uncomfortable. Healing, this kind of care work is really literally like this is the one thing a lot of us struggle with, especially for those of you who are really concerned about the world. Like you're really, and I think many of us are. That's what I do. I draw you all here, and we do this work together. Um, but I promise you that it's okay to drink deeply from practice because no one needs your your depletion. Well, where I was out today just running errands, and I was literally thinking, my God, everyone's so depleted, and I could feel it physically. Right, right, everyone is so depleted, everyone's exhausted, everyone's traumatized, everyone's hurt, and there's no liberation until we start actually doing the work to feel resourced, right? And that feels counterintuitive, particularly being conditioned by systems that depend on our depletion, right? Right.
Thank you so much, Paul. Herschel?
Hi, hello, Lama Rod. How are you
Hey,
doing today?
good.
I had two questions. One of which actually stems from so as my full-time job, I'm a neuroscientist, and that's why I'm learning a lot about Buddhism to see like where the intersection is. In my family, I have a number of people intergenerationally who have autism, and that does impact their like behaviors. And for me, my question really is, how does Buddhism explain genetic conditions that impact like cognitive behavioral issues? Sometimes, like untreated, unmanaged autism may lead to kind of very extreme narcissistic or psychopathic tendencies. It's very difficult to see these people who are completely stripped of empathy, any compassion, self-awareness, or level of consciousness, and they don't really have the ability to meditate in a manner that they can then connect emotionally to their emotions. Like they have very difficulty understanding their own emotions and then empathizing with other people's emotions. So, like, how if because when you think about it, like if all humans are God's creations, like what does that? How does that explain autistic people, right? Like if they're genetically in a position where they cannot empathize, where they cannot understand their own emotions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like that was very confusing to me.
Yes. Um, but I think one way to look at that is to not to say that, oh, people, there's something wrong with people, but instead to look at the systems and the conditions that create really rigid ways of being. You know, so it's like I'm not. It's not that something's wrong with me. It's actually the systems that people buy into that are actually creating harm. And the misunderstanding, right? And so I think there are ways, not to get terribly into the science, but I think there are. So when I think about this really important teaching in Buddhism, which is to reduce harm and violence, like for me, I'm really interested in what that looks like in different people's practice. And sometimes we don't necessarily have to get to the reduction of harm and violence through empathy. but it's through maybe sometimes a recognition that like, oh, maybe this isn't the best thing to do, or what have you, right? Um, and I think for the rest of us, particularly those of us who are deeply conditioned by systems, like our work is to understand that conditioning and actually kind of disrupt the ways in which we're forcing people to get in line, to assimilate, and to actually kind of disrupt that a little bit and to say, you know what, everyone's having a different reality, they're having a different experience. How can I, like, even just consider and think about, not even empathizing, but just to consider, oh, I wonder how this person is actually perceiving this very same situation that I'm in with them. I think that can open up a lot of curiosity. You can get curious, you know. So, I mean, again, there's just so many. I mean, people. There are so many people having so many different experiences of reality, right? And I'm really interested in that, right? And I'm also interested in how do I offer mm, like fluidity and space and options in these practices. Like how can I open up as many pathways as possible? Because in my training, I only got one pathway into these practices, and that was the orthodox traditional way, right? And so, for instance, this practice, Medicine Buddha, is, and actually really everything that I do, but particularly Medicine Buddha, for me, is just like, okay, let's just crack this wide open and see how many ways we can get to Medicine Buddha. You know, let's sing our way to Medicine Buddha. Let's do everything. You know, um, and so I hope that's helpful. You know, um, yeah, and then it's again, there's no such thing as perfection either. It's just like we're all coming into this life, coming into bodies with very unique karmic dispositions, and these karmic dispositions are just about perception. They're about how we're relating, how we're thinking, how we're being, right? And just offering a lot of space to people, to have their unique and personal experience, of reality. Right?
So I had my second question was like, is there any sense for human free will? Like, is there like a predetermined superior plan when things fail? So, for instance, when things fail, people would be like, oh, in divine timing, it will happen. But what if the divine timing was that things should fail? Um, so in the end, like, is there such a thing as human free will?
Is there such thing as
Like human free will,
oh,
free
free
will, like,
will? Hmm. Um, I mean that is a central question. Free will, right? And that's the hardest question to answer, right? And I'll say this. If we're talking about free will or will, I think it's something that okay. Let's come back to the Matrix, right? And when I say the Matrix, I mean the dream. um, so in a dream, or when we think about lucid dreaming, the practice of lucid dreaming and training and lucid dreaming or dream yoga, as we would say, as we were practicing Tibetan Buddhism, one of the 6 yogas of Niropa. In dream yoga, you're training to wake up in the dream, and that spark to want to wake up, right, is what I would call the sign of free will. But to get to free will, to get to that spark of wanting to wake up in a dream, it takes a lot of fucking work, right? So there is will, and this is why the bodhisattvas are incredibly important and the Buddhas are incredibly important, because they intercede to remind us that there is a choice to make, that we don't have to keep making the same old choices, because we're all ultimately shaping our experience of freedom and also, well, our experience of incarceration in samsara, or the carceral state. Well, I know people are having to sign off, but I'll just say one more thing, and then that'll be it. There's no one, as we would say, in there's no one being directing us, right? But there is this experience of the essence that's calling us back into relationship. And we call that essence, of course, Buddha nature, the essence. This is what we've been practicing tonight. And when you start feeling as if there is this awakened state, you just start being, the more you awaken to it, the more you start gravitating into this experience. And that gravitation can feel like an overarching authority guiding you, but it's actually just this like autopilot that's beginning to come online because you're finally beginning to move back in the direction of returning home. And you know how to get home because it's intuitive. It's like it's a memory that's just like, that is like your mind, right? And when we start making decisions that align us and draw us closer and closer to that is this experience of awakening. I mean, well, I keep using the same words over and over, but like that's the experience, right, of enlightenment, of slowly like returning back to the remembrance of what we are. Okay, well, it seems like people are offering other things here. But I think this is really quite interesting, and these are conversations I've had before as well. So this is really great. I love thinking with scientists about these questions as well, because it's really helpful, for me, even as a teacher, even as someone who has my own experience of neurodiversity as well that I'm trying to communicate through, right? Like there's the labor. It's like we're all having different experiences, but we're still together and living in community, living in society and cultures. And I think so much of the way that we struggled you know, in civilization or in communities is like the struggle of like, you know, really like holding space for the all the different ways we can experience a seemingly common reality. Right? And how do we do that without dominating each other, forcing each other to experience things in the same way we experience things? Right. Um, you know, so yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I hope that's helpful. I don't want to keep us too much longer, so I can just go down the whole path and, you know.
Hey, Lama Rod's Rachel. I want to say one thing briefly. This is what I'm noticing, that you say things differently every time, even though you're saying the same thing every time. And it's building on itself.
Yeah.
This shit is hard to put into words because words can't ever describe it. But it's like all the different ways you say things every week, it's building. I'm not kidding. I'm just thrilled. I just can't thank you enough. That's all I want to say.
Well, and you're a psychotherapist too, so like you, you know. But no, yeah, it's my personal struggle and work is to give language to something that actually transcends language.
Yeah.
And just doing it over and over again, like I find myself just saying the same thing over and over again. I'm like, I just said the same thing over and over again, you know. But that's just the kind of cycle you find yourself in because it can't be articulated. This is why I keep saying that, like, I'm just trying to point you in the right direction, and like you have to kind of figure it out on
But
your own.
you're embodying it even while you're saying what's unsayable. You're embodying it. And I swear, I think the fact that you use different words every time, you may be saying the same thing, but that who knows whether it's the word this word tonight that's going to be the portal for this person to go, aha. Again, I'm just telling you, it's like a thing of Legos, building, 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 and it fits together. So keep it up.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, we can continue doing it together. We can create our own language that works for us in the same way I had to. You know, there's the language of the tradition, you know, then I said, okay, but what is the language that excites me, that's clearer for me? You know, and that's what New Saints was really about. You know, it was just like, I want to create a new language that feels more indigenous to my experience, you know, in all these intersections that I kind of live at, you know. And I think that has to happen for all of you. You know, it's like you have to figure out where you're living and talk about where you're living in a way that makes sense for you. It doesn't really have to make sense for other people, but I think, Rachel, as you pointed out, at the end of the day, like there should be an embodiment of this as well, because that's really the point. It's the point isn't to try to figure out how to talk about it. The point is to experience it and to like and to be situated in the view, you know, the view, the ultimate view, right? Emptiness, space, and everything, right? Just to situate yourself. And that's all we've been doing in this session, you know. So anyway, that's good for me. Thank you all so much. Again, I'll see some of you in retreat this week, later this week, and I'll see the rest of you again in 2 weeks when I'm back.